Hello, good morning, everyone. I am Atul Chaudhary, Assistant Professor at IIMT College of Law. And today, for our video lecture, our topic is evolution of human rights. So, we all know what human rights are. Human rights are the basic rights that every human being has just because he has taken birth as a human being. Human rights are based mostly, and what I also believe they are based on the theory of dignity, that human beings are a very intelligent, conscious being, and they have a sense of dignity for themselves. They feel what is good and they feel what is bad, and they have a sense of dignity, and that is considered the basis of human rights for human beings. And there are some other theories as well for human rights, like natural theory, that it is a natural given sense of human rights or in humans that produces a sense of human rights, a sense of dignity in human beings also. And there is also, that historical school that human rights were given as part of our history and that we have continued and taken it from our history. So this is historical, as well as positive school, that human rights are rights only because the state has given these rights to its citizens and there is no other purpose or basis of human rights. But the most valid theory and recognized theory for human rights is the theory of dignity, that human beings are very intelligent, very conscious beings, and they have a sense of dignity, a right and wrong. That is why they know what is wrong and they know what is right. That is why they have certain human rights. And what is the basis of human rights? Basis of human rights is the need of human right is that without human rights, a person, a human being cannot achieve the best of himself. He cannot become the best of himself without human rights. Human rights are required for a person to become what he can actually become. And by becoming actually become means that he can become a better person, a better human being. So these human rights are required for a human being. And as our topic for this lecture is concerned, we will discuss about the evolution of human rights, how human rights evolved. Okay, so what is the evolution of human rights? How human rights slowly came into being. And let's discuss about the introduction. The Akkadian Empire was the first to establish a sophisticated bureaucracy, a setting of precedent for future governance. Sargon of Akkad granted land ownership to the embassy of gods and assigned administrative duties to the monarchs. While land use rights were managed by elite men, around 750 BC, Hammurabi of Babylon created the Code of Hammurabi, a set of 282 laws inscribed on a stone slate, which established a standard of justice and commerce. So, what is the Akkadian Empire? Akkadian Empire is an old empire on the banks of Tigris and Euphrates that we know most best known as Babylon and Mesopotamian civilization. So this empire was before Mesopotamian civilization. And in this Akkadian empire, certain rights were discussed, certain rights were considered for human beings. And that is considered as a starting of human rights. And the king Hammurabi, so the Hammurabi was a king in Babylon. Babylon is also the part of that empire. It's a city, Babylon city. And he had a code of laws for monarchs, for the local administrative people, for the governments. And the laws granted some rights to its citizens, and they are considered an early documented base of human rights. Okay, so 282 laws that were given, although there was some kind of discriminatory, they given some rights, more rights to elite class, but it gave some certain rights to human beings. Okay, so this was considered the starting of human rights. There was a cylindrical code of Hammurabi that every laws were inscripted on a stone cylinder. It was known as the Code of Hammurabi. And let's move on and discuss about introduction more. In 539 BC, Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon, freeing slaves and promoting religious freedom and racial equality. His actions influenced the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Similar idea of human rights were presented in various ancient civilizations, including the Vedic period of India, where the concept of dharma emphasized moral and ethical laws applicable to all. Key historical events that further shaped human rights include the Magna Carta 1215, the Bill of Rights 1688, United States Declaration of Independence 1776, and the French Declaration of Rights of Men and Citizens 1780. These milestones contributed to the evolution of human rights and understood today. So Cyrus the Great was an emperor. He captured Babylon and freed slaves and promoted religious freedom and racial equality. So these are the steps that were taken in historical times for human rights, and these were the steps taken by the rulers for the betterment of humans, and they can be considered as the baseline and the starting point of the modern human rights. And they have influenced various documents, UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and various constitutions as well. And these similar concepts are in the concept of dharma, the Vedic concept of dharma as well. So the major historical events that got influenced by it, and we will discuss these events in our further slides, is Magna Carta of 1512, Bill of Rights of 1688, Universal Declaration of Independence of 1776, French Declaration of Rights of Men and Citizens. There are some milestones that we will discuss in our further slides. There is also one thing that is not written in the slides. It is also the various amendments that came in the Constitution of the United States. So they gave a basic constitution, but for the betterment of humans, they amended certain rights also. So what they did was they gave some amendment to the presented constitution, and those amendments were for the betterment of humans, and they were curtailing the rights and powers of the United States government. So they are also considered a step for human rights. Let's discuss what human rights is. Human beings are beings who need essential rights to live a life of dignity. To understand the evolution of human rights, we must first understand the history of human rights around the world. In this way, the evolution of human rights can be traced. As such, this assignment includes all the topics and events that have contributed to the development of human rights in today's world. Sexual orientation, gender, dignity, nation and ethnic origin, color, religion, language, or other status are all entitled equally without discrimination as essential to a life of dignity. As we discussed that human rights are important for a dignified life. This is the theory of dignity. To understand the development of human rights, trace all the significant events and that take place to contribute to the development of human rights around the world. At that end, let's begin with the earliest evidence of human rights in history. The earliest evidence is the earliest documented modern kind of evidence for human rights is Magna Carta of 1215. 1215 is not a very recent time. It is around what years? Around 800 years, 810 years around. So it is not very recent, but it is not ancient history as well. Magna Carta. So what happened in Magna Carta? Let me give you a brief, small history for Magna Carta. What happened there was that the king who was of England, King John of England, he was forced by some barons of England. Barons are the local landlords of England. They are when they support the king gets all his powers from the support of barons. So they forced the King John of England to sign on a document which is known, and this document is known as Magna Carta. This document was known as Magna Carta. But they forced the King of England to sign on it, and the terms in the document were curtailing the power of King John of his actions. They were they were taking away the powers from King John. Like it mentions that there will be no arbitrary arrest. Arrest will be done with the court, whatever the court that was at that time, and the king will not take away anyone's property. No unnecessary taxes as well. So these were the certain rights that were in Magna Carta, and King John of England was forced to sign on it on this document. Magna Carta is a chapter of rights issued by King John of England in 1215 under pressure from barons. As we discussed that he was pressurized by the local barons to sign on this document. This was the first written document relating to fundamental rights of citizens. Part 3 of the Constitution is described as the Magna Carta of India. So, what is the part 3 of our Constitution? Part 3 is the part of fundamental rights. So, this part of fundamental rights is sometimes called the Magna Carta of India. Because why Magna Carta of India? Because as the document of Magna Carta issued certain rights to the citizens, this document, the part 3 of our Constitution, also has fundamental rights in it. So that is why it is called the Magna Carta of India. It contains a very long and comprehensive list of justiciable fundamental rights, talking about part 3. In fact, these fundamental rights in our Constitution are more elaborate than those found in the Constitution in any other country in the world, including the United States. So now we will discuss about petition of rights. What was petition? The next recorded milestone in the development and human rights was the petition of rights, produced in 1628 by British Parliament and sent to Charles I as the statement of civil liberties. So these were, as we know, that the government in United Kingdom is a monarchy. What is a monarchy government? Monarchy government is a government it's a system of government in which the head is the king. It is still the king, and but the working of the country are not run by the arbitrary power of the king, but it is done by the running government. It runs under the king, but the prime minister or the president of that government has all the powers. Just like in United Kingdom, says Rishi Sunak is the prime minister and he runs the government, runs the country, but the head of the government is only king, and he has no real powers. King has no. So it was also this case that this petition of right was produced in 1628 by England Parliament and sent to King Charles. So the Parliament of England made this petition of rights and it was sent to Charles first as the statement of civil liberties. What civil liberty means? Fundamental rights. Fundamental rights means human rights. Refusal by the Parliament to finance the King's unpopular foreign policy had caused his government to accept forced loans and to quarter troops in subject houses as economic measures. So what was that the Charles first of that time, he, because of his foreign policy, he wanted to make a war with the neighbors or want to conquest some other land. But these people, they denied this working of the government and they produced this document, which is the petition of rights, in which he was forced not to take any more loans. He was forced. What King Charles wanted is that the troops, his army, would live in the houses of the citizens. But the citizens in the petition of rights, they declined his decision. Okay. Arbitrary arrest and imprisonment for opposing these policies had produced in the parliament a violent hostility to Charles and to George Wheeler, the Duke of Buckingham. The petition of right initiated by Sir Edward Coke was based upon earlier statutes and charters and asserted 4 principles. So the petition of right was also based on earlier charters. The one that we discuss is Magna Carta. So what were the main assumption and the principles of this charter is that no taxes may be levied without the consent of the parliament. So until parliament consents, then only tax can be levied. If the parliament declines a certain tax, that tax cannot be collected from the citizen. So this was the first principle. No subject may be imprisoned without cause shown. That means it was the writ of habeas corpus that we have in our Article 32 of our Constitution. It means no unnecessary arrest, and if it is arrested, he has to be produced before a authority within a certain period of time. And no soldier may be quartered upon the citizens, as we discussed. That what he king wanted is that he wanted his troop to stay in civilian homes, and so that he can cut his own cost. And martial law, this was his third principle of this petition of rights. And the fourth was the martial law may not be imposed in time of peace. That in peace time, that in time where there was no war or battle going on, no martial law can be imposed. Okay. So these were the principle of petition of rights of 1680, 1628. Let's talk about English Bill of Rights, which was of in 1689. Formally titled as an act declaring the right and liberties of the subject and settling the succession of the crown. This was the name, formal name of this act. Was a key document in the British Constitution. It emerged from the struggle between King Stuart King and Parliament, establishing the monarchy's dependence on Parliament's will after Glorious Revolution. So there was a revolution that occurred in England, it was known as Glorious Revolution, and it is believed that Jeremy Bentham also took part in this revolution. So what is the basic, there was a basic thing that happened in the government of England as this power struggle was going on. The parliament wanted power for himself and wanted to give freedom to the public, but the king and the monarchy wanted to hold as many power as they can. So this was the struggle that was going on between parliament and monarchy in England. So this bill, it limited the power of the monarchy of the royal family of England and provided freedom to the general public of UK. The act declared illegal several practices of James II, such as suspending laws without parliament's consent, levying taxes, and maintaining a standing army in peacetime without approval. So King James II was the king of England, and he wanted a large army, always prepared, and he suspended certain laws, but the parliament gained more power to themselves and giving more freedom to the people, and they limited his power of levying taxes, of maintaining an army, and and they also curtailed and they also took away his power of declaring any law of the parliament as illegal. So his act of declaring any act illegal or not following that law was declared illegal. It also ensured free election, freedom of speech for parliament members, and restricted royal interference in justice. The act settled the succession of Protestant heirs of Mary II, Queen Anne, and William III. So what it gave more freedom of election, it gave more freedom of speech for parliament and the general public. At least it started that right movement in the right way. This and the next milestone, next step for the development of modern human rights in our history. 1776 is not ancient history. This can be called as modern history. Is the Virginia Declaration. Virginia Declaration of Right, adopted in June 12th of 1776, was a key document in US Constitution history, influencing the Bill of Rights added to the US Constitution 15 years later. Drafted primarily by George Mason, it declared that all men are by nature equally free and independent, with inherent right to life, liberty, property, and pursuit of happiness. So United States got independence on June of 1776. They declared their independence. They fought a war. And in Virginia, Virginia is a state now divided in two states, West Virginia and Virginia. So they issued a declaration in Virginia, and in that declaration, George Mason, he later on became the president of the United States. He declared that all men are by nature equally free and independent. So if a document declared that all men are equally free, it means it is giving freedom and equal protection of law to everyone, and it is a human right of human beings to be treated equally. Okay, so this is a major statement, and this declaration, as we discussed earlier, it became the basis of the upcoming the it became the basis of the amendments in the US Constitution that gave more right to the people through the amendments to the Constitution. And they became the base of modern fundamental rights. Now we talk about United States Declaration of Independence. It had happened in 1776. When the declaration happened, they declared that we will make the United States a country that is free from oppression, that has all kind of freedoms, and so that declaration is also considered as a positive step for the development of modern human rights. The Declaration of Independence also guaranteed civil liberties like freedom of press, religion, and protection against deprivation of liberty without due process. Manson, though a Southerner, opposed the slave trade and supported manumission and free labor. He also criticized the proposed US Constitution's centralization of power, which led to the adoption of Bill of Rights. United States Declaration of Independence, approved by Congress on July 4, 1776, was primarily authored by John Thomas Jefferson. It formally explained why the 13 American colonies were declaring independence from Great Britain following the American Revolutionary War. The Declaration emphasized individual rights and rights of revolution, ideas that resonated with Americans and influenced movement like French Revolution. Okay, so this declaration, it declared that we are breaking off from our from our head of the government, that is United Great Britain, and we are making our own country, and the basis of our country will be the freedom that we will give to our citizens, like freedom of press, religion, movement, and protection of law, that we will give these all the freedom to our citizen. And that declaration is also considered a major step for the development of modern human rights. Now we talk about the Constitution of the United States of America and the Bill of Rights. So what are Bill of Rights? Bill of Rights are those amendments that were made to the Constitution of the United States, and those amendments took away the power from the government and gave freedom to the general public or citizens of the United States. US Constitution, written in 1787, is the fundamental law of United States federal government and a key document in Western history. It establishes the structure of government and outlines citizens' basic rights. The first-hand amendments, known as Bill of Rights, the amendment that were made into the Constitution of the United States, and they curtailed the power of the government and they gave freedom to the people of citizens of the United States. The first-hand amendments, known as Bill of Rights, took effect on December 15, 1791, limiting federal powers and protecting freedom, such as speech, religion, assembly, right to bear arms. So, right to bear arms was the second amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America. This right to bear arms is the second amendment. It also safeguards against unreasonable search and seizure, cruel punishment, self-incrimination, while ensuring legal protection like due process, a fair trial, and protection from double jeopardy. Declaration of Rights of Men and of Citizens. So this was also a declaration that was made in France. You always remember that France and United States, they have a very old friendship. Okay, so when the United States fought against Britain for its independence, the French forces gave support to the American forces, and they won their war for independence. Okay, and the Statue of Liberty was gifted by France to United States. It was made in France just as a gift for United States. So they United States and France have a very old friendship, and they still use that friendship in their jewelries. In 1789, the French Revolution abolished the absolute monarchy. The National Constitutional Assembly adopted the Declaration of Rights of Men and Citizens as a precursor to France's first constitution. The Declaration guarantees all citizens the right of liberty, property, security, and resistance to oppression. It views laws as expression of the general will, ensuring that natural rights are upheld while only forbidden action harmful to society. So this declaration, it came after French Revolution. What was French Revolution? That the general public of the government, the basic sum of the French Revolution, that they revolted against the king, against the monarch, and they abolished completely French monarchy. This was the general gist of French Revolution, and they adopted this declaration right of men and women and citizens, right of men and of citizens in 1789. It gave many rights to the general public of general citizens of France. Now we come to first Geneva Convention. Geneva is a city in Switzerland. We know that. In 1864, 16 European countries and several American states attended a conference in Geneva at the invitation of Swiss Federal Council on the initiative of the Geneva Convention. The diplomatic conference was held for the purpose of adopting a convention for the treatment of wounded soldiers in combat. Always remember there are two terms. First is human rights and the second is humanitarian laws. Okay, and to remember is humanitarian laws are those laws which come in, are those human rights which come in effect when a war or a fighting between two state parties is going on. Humanitarian laws come in that scenario, and human rights, they continue in peacetime and also in war. Okay, so human right is a bigger umbrella, and humanitarian laws is a part that is under that human rights law. So in 1864, many countries, they discussed and they came in a conference, and they first discussed about the first Geneva Convention. And the main purpose of this convention is the treatment of the wounded soldier in any war. So the person who is behind the Geneva Convention, he was a doctor, and he was a medical personnel also, he was a merchant also, and he saw a wounded soldier dying on the battlefield. So he got together all these governments and proposed a convention that how the treated are the wounded soldiers in any combat, in any belligerency should be treated. The main principle laid down in the convention and maintained by the later Geneva Convention provided for the obligation to extend care without discrimination to wounded and sick military personnel, and respect from and marking of medical personnel transport and equipment with the distinctive sign of Red Cross on a white background. So the Red Cross on a white background that we see in army, it is because of the Geneva Convention, and it basically says that all the soldiers of any party should be treated. Okay, so there should be no discrimination between any soldier, any wounded soldier. Now we come to the most major milestone of the modern history about human rights, and it is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1940. Obviously, it happened after Second World War. What happened in next Second World War? The Axis powers, Germany, Italy, and France, and Japan. They were the Axis powers. They were defeated by Allied powers that were United States, United Kingdom, France, and Russia, later by Soviet Union. In 1948, the United Nations Human Rights Commission, led by Eleanor Roosevelt. Eleanor Roosevelt, he was the president, the then president of United States, drafted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which Roosevelt called the International Magna Carta for all human rights. So the Eleanor Roosevelt gave it the name as International Magna Carta of Human Rights. You know that Magna Carta was the first document that extensively talked about the human rights that we see in the modern world. Adopted on December 10, 1948, the Declaration's preamble and Article 1 affirms the inherent right of all human beings, condemning condemning the disregard for these rights that led to barbarous acts. It declared that all people are born free and equal in dignity and rights. The UN member states committed to promoting the Declaration's 30 articles, many of which have since been incorporated into constitutional laws of democratic nations. India also incorporated many articles from UDHR, that is Universal Declaration of Human Rights, into our constitution. We talk about now, we have reached to the conclusion that human rights advocacy continued only in the 21st century while a formal point of achieving extra financial and political freedom. In July 2022, the United International Locations well-known meeting passed a decision spotting everybody on the planet has the proper to a wholesome environment. He called on nations to step up their efforts to make certain and their residents have get admissions to an easy, wholesome, and sustainable level. So we discussed that how human rights started from the Mesopotamia civilization. There are talks of equal treatment in Indian Vedas and the Dharma also, and it carried on from generally from Magna Carta, Declaration of Human Rights, Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights of United States Constitution, and and the major milestone that it achieved, which is in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on December 10, 1948. It was the last major milestone achieved by human rights in its development. Human rights have not stopped developing. They should not stop developing. And we should, and I hopefully that we will see major milestone ahead in time to come for human rights, for the development of human rights. Thank you.